there. That turned out to be well. I've got a lot of positive feedback from things that were said there, and we will. Um, so anyway, with that, anything else we need to bring before the committee? Anybody got any pressing things we can discuss? It's a lot. I've been talking with my Senate colleagues, Senator Goodman, and been in contact with lots of other farmers. We're going to have a pretty busy year, I think, coming in for our committee next year. We're talking about a lot of issues that are bubbling up that affect agriculture, and we're just going to talk about two today, and we might. When session gets started in January, we'll have a lot of other issues hanging out there. Some things I'm concerned about. And I'll just be frank with you, losing a lot of our farmland, ag farmland in rural Georgia. And I think that's one of the things on the top of my list that we need to have a discussion about and way forward. And our farmers, I know some of them are here. I see Sam Watson and Clay Perkle and Chairman over here need to be home harvesting crops, and maybe Clay Perkle's finished, but I'm finished, and but it's a real issue sometimes trying to get to this capital and serve and see about the farm back home. So I appreciate everybody being here. But anyway, Chairman Perkle.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to be negative or anything, but I will say the legislative showdown.
Yeah.
Our legislators did way
Oh.
better than the judges reflected on the scorecard. I'm
Yeah.
saying. We put
Right.
it on the line. We did a great job, and the outcome was not appropriately.
Well, I've told folks it was not our members. They did a better job showing the animals. The animals we got, Drew, were not quite up to quality. I think I think our Senate colleagues got animals, but I do thank y'all for being there. That was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. I hope everybody there did as well. So a lot of good things going on with our ag, and we've had some good harvest weather throughout our state for our growers, and so anyway, with that, I'm gonna ask Adam Bellflower, if everybody knows Adam, with Georgia Farm Bureau, and you'll be seeing him. He's in my office most days during session, and a great resource, Georgia Farm Bureau, great organization that Adam could probably tell you a little bit more about. They got offices in every county, a really grassroots organization that I've been a member of ever since I started in agriculture, and I appreciate the good job they do and the support they give for me and this committee throughout the session and throughout the year. But Adam's got a few things that they are looking at, and I'll just turn it over to you, Adam, in your presentation. You can say a few words about Farm Bureau, about some policy issues y'all looking at, or whatever you want to do. Let me find.
It's number one. Got me. And then that projector just cut off on me during lunch. It was working before we ate lunch. Let me see if I can't. Is somebody. I'm plugged up here. Uh-oh. That's okay. Well, we can start talking, and then what I need to get to, we can throw up there too. Well, Chairman Dickey, thank you, and committee, thank you for letting me be here. I know gotten to see a lot of y'all this off season, gotten to be around, whether it be study committee meetings or Ag Issue Summit or just County Farm Bureau meetings. A lot of y'all have been very good to our folks in the counties and being there for those. So we really appreciate y'all's support. And I know our members on the county level really appreciate that. And that's a really important thing about Farm Bureau and our organization. We are, like Chairman Dickey said, a grassroots organization. Everything that I get to come up here and talk to y'all about comes through our policy development process, which is multiple stages of discussion and debate internally amongst our members and different committees within Farm Bureau. And here next week will be our Farm Bureau convention down in Jekyll, and all of our policy book will be up for debate, and will have to be voted on by our members and approved by our members. And then I get to use that policy book as I come up here and discuss different issues and different agenda items with y'all, and that kind of dictates where we fall on different issues. So we really are, we're a grassroots organization, and we're proud about that. We're proud to say that the things that we come to the Capitol and we come to y'all with are things that are true concerns of our members. But today, wanted to take a little bit of time and talk. I actually got to spend some time at Rural Development Council speaking on the same issue, and I'm actually using the same presentation from Rural Development Council, but talk a little bit about deer nuisance and wildlife nuisance. That has been something, no matter where we travel in the state, no matter what county we have been in this year and over the past few years, we have continued to have that come up amongst our members. Crop depredation from deer has been a big issue, and wildlife nuisance is not a new thing to farming. I think many farmers and our farmers in the room can attest this, that a farmer expects some % of yield loss every year due to wildlife damage, whether that's wild hogs, feral hogs, whether that's deer, whatever that might be. There is an expectation that by nature of farming, you are going to be affected by animals to some extent. The issue that we have seen and that we believe has continued to escalate over the past few years has been that the pressure from white-tailed deer is getting so extensive where farmers are actually starting to feel that on their bottom line, and they're starting to actually feel an economic impact to deer damage. Thank you very much. So that's my but like I said, this issue it's seen a lot of growth over the past few years. You talk to farmers. One of the big things we have seen is deer damage is not just been occurring over some of the crops that we typically saw it in years past, like soybeans. You're now seeing it affect pretty much every commodity across the state, and pretty much every county in the state is experiencing this. And it's a little bit of a nuanced issue, right? Compared to feral hogs, nobody likes wild hogs. There's not any benefit from a wild hog, and everybody agrees that we would like to eradicate wild hogs, and that's a pretty shared consent amongst everybody. However, there's a little bit of a different story with deer. People like to deer hunt, and deer hunting is big business in Georgia, and we recognize that. So what we kind of come to the table with is we believe there needs to be a healthy population of white-tailed deer in the state of Georgia where our farmers can succeed and their bottom line is not being affected by the deer population, but also there's still enough deer out there where hunters can enjoy hunting deer. So that's kind of background, big picture of what's going on here. I'm going to show 2 videos to kind of put in scope of what we're seeing and what a lot of our farmers are experiencing. Both of these videos you're about to see are on about 30 to 40 acre fields. So again, putting that in perspective, compare the number of deer you're going to see to about the size of that field. And those are relatively small row crop fields. These are both row crop farmers. I think they were peanuts, if I remember correctly. So kind of just with all that in mind, I'm going to let y'all see these 2 videos. Let's see, there it goes.
So is that through a scope?
Yes, sir. So that was roughly I think a 45, 50 acre field, and this next one was about a 30 acre field right here. Middle Georgia. Yeah, so that was. So again, hoping this kind of frames the issue. We're not talking 5, 10 deer. We're talking 70, 80, 100 deer at a time that farmers are seeing, especially with some of the row crop farmers. And this is kind of a visual demonstration of what we're seeing a lot with deer damage in cotton. So that has been, I kind of spoke on how the commodities have shifted, and I see Chairman Meeks is nodding his head. A lot of farmers did not experience deer damage in cotton until very, very recently, like past few years, I would say. And a lot of what it is when the cotton is first planted and it comes out of the ground, it it's just a little stem with 2 leaves on it. And deer are coming down about that time of year, May-ish time of year, and they are biting off those 2 leaves, and just kind of going down the rows and just biting. And what you're left with is just a little stem. And this kind of shows the comparison. It completely kills the cotton crop. And you see those little 4 toothpick-looking things right there in between that row, and that's where the cotyledons got snipped off of those cotton plants, and it completely killed that plant. There was no more growth there. So that's kind of that's pretty typical damage for cotton. And a lot of crops are damage is different. I've talked to Chairman Dickey about this. In his peach orchards, a lot of times deer will walk through and they'll snip peaches and knock them off the tree, and you walk through and you have peaches laid on the ground with like 1 bite took out of them. And so again, talk to hay farmers and some of our cattle guys, and they rotationally they graze their cows, and they've moved cattle off one pasture into the other to let that pasture recover from having cows grazed on it. And they say, after 2 months that field should look better, but because I have 100 deer coming out there grazing every night, there really was no benefit of taking my cows off of it, because now the deer are just eating all the hay off of it. So it's a unique problem, and it's hitting a lot of farmers across a lot of commodities. This is just a little bit of stuff that we've had. Farmers tell us, and some pictures that have been shown with me, or shared with me. That's an entire 38-acre field of toothpicks, again referencing that cotton just getting snipped off when it was really young, where we had a near perfect stand. So basically that farmer saying, all my cotton came up. I got it out the ground, but then immediately about the time it got up out the ground, the deer came and wiped it out. And then second trip across, nothing left. So that farmer actually planted once, had deer damage so bad that he deemed it necessary he was going to go in and replant.
$700 a bag.
Seed cost.
To that point, 33,000 seed to the acre
Mm-hmm.
is about the normal population
Yes.
of cotton fields.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so keep in mind, when he puts that down, he's also putting down fertilizer, 15 gallons to the acre. He's also putting down a herbicide, 3 to 5 pounds of insecticide to the acre as well. And then he's got the seed on top of it.
And he's running diesel in those tractors, which ain't cheap. So that farmer replanted. He planted, got hit hard. He replanted, got hit hard again, and he's looking at a field. I mean, do you replant a third time, or is that point is it just being dumb? It's kind of the questions they're having to juggle. And then top right, definitely the worst I've had in 5 years. Again, speaking to just seeing it kind of this problem is starting to escalate, where deer are becoming more of an issue in different commodity groups. And then lost 50% of a 9-acre field in town. Can't afford to put an electric fence around 40 different fields. Farmers are getting creative. They're trying to explore different ideas of how they can work on this issue. And a lot of people say, well, fence in your fields. Well, Chairman Meeks, I don't know how many acres you farm, but I promise it's probably hard to put all that in.
They'll do just as much damage on the fence because us cattle farmers, we may not be row croppers, but one winter I had over 6,000 foot of fence. It was pretty much damaged over a period of a year that had to be replaced.
And that's a great point. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is something our cattle guys who maybe they're not eating, the yields aren't getting affected, but their fence is getting damaged because they have deer running up and down their fences. They have deer hopping their fences and getting stuck in them. So you have a ton of. I was with a friend of mine this past weekend after Thanksgiving, and we rode around for 3 hours fixing fences where deer had jumped through them and tore them down. So it's an issue that you're seeing again across all commodities, and deer damage looks different depending on the crop and depending on the farm. So a few of the things we've been doing, because this has been something that our members have talked to us a lot about. The first one, facilitating farmers' input in reports of deer impact. So doing kind of what I'm doing right here. We got the opportunity to speak at Rural Development Council and tried to let legislators know the issue. Chairman Dickey was kind enough to let me come here today and tell y'all about the issue. And we're trying to get the word out that this is a real issue, and just as pressing as so many other issues are to farmers. Deer are top of that list right now. Working with DNR to make deer depredation permits more efficient for farmers. So DNR offers these depredation permits, and those 2 videos you saw were filmed through thermal cameras on the top of rifles. So those farmers were utilizing depredation permits. They were acting legally in doing that. But these permits allow farmers to kind of, it relaxes a lot of the regulations that are on your normal hunter, like season restrictions, bag limit restrictions, those kind of things. Like night or day hunting. You know, when a farmer has a depredation permit, they have a lot more ease to go out and take deer off their property, as long as they're farming and they have some kind of their land in agricultural production. They can use these permits. Nobody can go sign, like, it's not like I can go get a depredation permit. You have to be a farmer with fields that are being impacted. You have to apply for that permit. But we work with DNR a lot, and they've had a very open line of communication with us, of just trying to get input from farmers on what works and what doesn't work about this program. What are ways that they can make it more efficient and easier to use. I actually got a chance to talk with Representative Hagan a couple weeks ago about this, and trying to take farmers' input that we hear and communicate that to DNR so they can make that program the most efficient it can be, because it's a great program. A lot of times the solution is more deer just need to be took from that property, and this is the way farmers can take those deer. And then funding research, collaborating with UGA. We just wrapped up about 2 weeks ago a survey that we did. So Farm Bureau, University of Georgia Extension, and the Department of Ag, all three of us kind of partnered together, and we put together a deer impact survey. And our goal is to get a lot of the numbers that Chairman Meeks was talking about from farmers all across the state. We had roughly 350 farmers respond to our survey, and we're currently working on kind of going through some of that data and getting those numbers pulled out that we can come and share with y'all. And it looks at things like replant costs and mitigation costs, and to try to help paint a picture of what it actually is doing to the farmer's bottom line, like how these deer are affecting them, and also looking at what commodities are the worst, what commodities are maybe not experiencing quite as bad. So there's a lot of information, good information that's going to come out of that survey, and we're excited to get those results back.
Question, so with the deer they're taking,
Yes, sir.
the farmer has to remove them from the field if they shoot a number of them. Are they taking it and someone's picking the deer up the process, or just the company?
It depends the farmer you talk to. A lot of farmers are. I actually was talking to a farmer a couple weeks ago, and they have some families that they work with, and every deer they take, they give to these families, and those families dress them, and they eat them, and they use them for their groceries. So it depends what different farmers are doing. Some farmers are having to take so many deer where they don't know what to do with them, and that's kind of something. Yes, sir. I haven't heard that. I'm not sure if anybody. Chairman Burgle.
Well, I understand you could give them away or you could process them yourself. So a question I had is that in my experience with getting a permit, so you cannot have the permit during deer season.
That's right.
So a farmer whose crop is impacted can put like 7 or 8, six on the permit. So one of the problems though is, hypothetically, some of my buddies that would normally be on my permit, if they had a ticket for shooting dove over bait, or something, would not qualify to be on the permit. So the people that qualified were a little bit, they had a pretty stringent requirement.
All your buddies couldn't shoot because they got tickets.
I'm just saying hypothetically. Hypothetically.
I've heard it.
I've heard it happening. Is that not true?
Yes. So that again, that is something, trying to work with DNR, trying to work out make that permit system as most efficient as possible, and that is a big thing. Trying to work on I know me and Chairman Dickey have talked about that. Trying to increase processing capacity, I think is a solution to this issue. One of the solutions to this issue is, is there ways we can increase processing capacity? I know I'm from Cochran, Georgia, in Bleckley County. To my knowledge, we have one deer processor left. We had 4 when I was in high school. That wasn't that long ago. We're down to 1, and they closed 2 weeks ago. Because they were full, and that was halfway through November, so the rut wasn't even over yet, and they were full of deer. So I think like that kind of shows the issue, some of the issues with farmers that do want to kill more deer. Maybe they don't have the freezer space. Maybe they don't have the processing capacity to do something with the deer they want to kill. Again, I think there's a lot of layers to this issue, but and this is kind of some ideas we've bounced around. This is my last slide, and then I'm excited to hear a lot of the thoughts y'all have. But kind of a few of the final thoughts we've had recently. Research. I mean, we've kind of, like I said, been hitting on that first one, quantify the economic burden. And then the second thing is you hear a lot looking for mitigation devices, whether that's like seed treatments, whether that's some kind of application you can put out to deter deer. A lot of times the issue with things like that, in my perspective, is those are very long-term solutions. For a chemical and seed manufacturer to come out with a new product that would deter deer and get it on the shelves where a farmer can actually purchase it, that's a many year process. It has to go through, the R&D phase where it's actually developed. Then it has to go through all the FDA and EPA field trials, has to pass field trials, and it has to be manufactured, and then it has to be, so you're looking, those times 10, 15 years at the shortest until you can get a product like that actually in the hands of farmers. But we do think it's something still worth looking at, and there's a lot of research going into things like different mitigation devices. Again, continuing effectiveness of the current depredation program. And then my last bullet is legislative intervention, and that's kind of where one of the big things we've been talking to y'all about, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up today is, we're a month away from the next legislative session, and if we can begin as the Ag Committee to discuss what solutions might look like to this issue in ways that y'all can intervene and bring a little bit of relief to farmers, I think it would be very impactful across the state. This truly is, and I think these numbers that we're getting back soon will help show this, but this truly is a big problem farmers are facing. You're talking significant economic impact, and there's a lot of farmers that they kind of scratch their head when they look at their field after it gets ate year after year by deer, and they wonder, like, why are we still doing this? If I'm just going to plant my field every year and the deer are going to come mow it down, do I need to get into something different? And so that's a real pressure a lot of our guys are facing. So we want to help them the best we can, and we know we hope that we can find some solutions that will help them. So, and in my last picture, that was from one of our farmers, one of our Farm Bureau members. The edges of this entire farm get eaten each year, at least the boom's width, and in the very back it's worse. So just another picture kind of showing a visual of that impact. But that's all I have to say. I'd love to field questions if y'all have any questions, and also just let y'all chat through any ideas. Again, I know a lot of y'all, this is the second time y'all have heard this presentation from me, so I hope since the last time we talked about it, y'all might have come up with some new ideas.
Well, thank you, Adam. And before we're going to take some questions.
Yes,
I just want to recognize my counterpart, Senator Russ Goodman, Chairman Goodman, came in here, and he's been working hard. He's hearing all these issues either. Chairman, you want to say anything about this or got anything? Do I just appreciate.
Mr. Chairman, I get accused of being long-winded, so I'm gonna let you unless you
Well,
want me to say something.
Well, I just appreciate him. He and I are working hard on lots of issues, a lot of conversation, talking, and I know his committee is working on a lot of issues, members of his committee as well, and I just appreciate the good working relationship both of us have. We're going to try to move issues and try to solve some both ways. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for being here. I want to also introduce, we got some Department of Ag people here. Catherine Russell, stand up. Thank you. Y'all know her. Legislature, leg council, I guess, or whatever for the Department of Ag. Anything you've got to say? Okay. Well, I'll let you speak when we get through with this or other thing. And so, brought her team over there. I see Dominic in the corner and Patrick Guthrie there. So, I want to tell y'all probably see the commissioner too. He's all over this state, really tackling a lot of issues for that department. It's a big department with a lot of responsibilities, not just ag sort of, but I just really appreciate the good job Commissioner Harper's doing, engaging with people all across the state, and it's been a real pleasure working with him over the last few months. He's been there. So, and we got some other friends. Will Bentley, Agribusiness Council, Jake. Matthews with Georgia Forestry Association here, and who all else we got? We got lots of good friends in the ag industry around that I see all the time. So, questions to, I just want to make sure, I know the Senate's got some responsibilities. I want to make sure, introduce them, and, Chairman Corbett, you got a question?
Sure, if this worked, there we go. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was sent an article by somebody in this room, but it's talking about the food bank. We started out this meeting talking about the food bank here in Georgia, but in Iowa, they had 50,000 pounds of venison donated to the food bank in Iowa through a program, the HUSH program, Help Us Stop Hungry. And it's a collaboration between hunters, processors, and the DNR in Iowa, and it's funded, what I can read and tell, by a $1 additional fee to everybody that buys a deer license. Now, whether that's what we choose to do or not, but I think that's something we need to absolutely explore, to give hunters an option. Now, a lot of people would probably harvest more deer if they had something like this to donate, and enough processors to do that.
It's expensive to take a deer, get it processed.
Do I?
I think we had a program in this state, Georgia Conservancy or something.
That's what we need. They're doing it now.
With food bank. Venison, I want to find out more about that program. We did have something one time. I think the funding's not there, or, but that is an
a
excellent
funded source. If it a $1 per license, I don't know if that's something we'd be.
But I
willing to
think
entertain,
that's what DNR will tell us. I think hunters are not taking as many deer for the reasons of having to in the hard. You just mentioned about processors being full, not enough of them, and the cost as well. So
We do have a program similar to that. It's not ran through the state, but Hunters for the Hungry, and they try to do similar work to that. It's all private donations. It's all private donors. And I'm not sure. I don't want to misspeak. I'm not sure what group organizes that, but we do have a program called Hunters for the Hungry. And I think they haven't been able to partner with many processors, but they are trying to do something along the lines of that. So I know we are making attempts for that. Because I was talking to Chairman Knight, stepped out, but I think they actually took a few deer to one this year to a similar thing where him and his sons have killed a couple of deer they didn't have use for, and so they took it to one of the processors that participated in that program. So.
any other questions? Yeah, I'm sorry. Lisa Hagan.
Mr.
Got it.
Chairman, am I on? Thank you, Adam, for being here. I think it's good that those of us that were not on the Rural Development Council got to hear this again, because it is very impactful to our farmers, and not just our farmers. We have people in Metro Atlanta who hit these deer that are running around. I mean, so this is really a statewide problem. Of course, I'm being a rural legislator. I'm more concerned about my farmers, but I'm also concerned about being out on those dark highways at night because you don't see them coming. Mm-hmm. But anyway, anecdotally, I'd just like to back up what he says. I mean, we pretty much already know it. One of my local farmers drove by a couple of weeks ago when I was outside, and he happens to be Senator Watson's brother-in-law, and he came by, and I asked him how his cotton crop was going because I'd seen the trucks going by the house all week, and he said he thought maybe 20% he had lost due to the deer. And for our small farmers, even medium-sized farmers, that's a huge impact. So we do need to come up with something that we can do. Along with what Chairman Corbett just said, I wonder if anybody knows if any of our Department of Corrections locations do any processing. Do we know if that could be an option for us? But they're not processing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can we do that?
County, $25 million processing plant for the school system.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I have no clue until I talk to the superintendent, but prime property and area and farmland, that'd be good.
I know one of the big challenges and that a lot of processors face when it comes to deer, because it's deer or wildlife, they have to be processed in a separate facility, or either the facility has to be completely sanitized. So you can't run, oftentimes, and I think Dale might could speak to this better, oftentimes, to my knowledge, you can't run wildlife through a meat processing facility that's being used for beef or some kind of, unless it's completely like sanitized, completely cleaned, then the deer ran through later. So that is one of the issues you kind of run into with trying to have one facility do both, or having like a teaching facility that does like, pork, beef, and venison, is you kind of run into those, like some of the sanitation issues and regulations against processing wildlife through there.
Okay, we got a couple other questions. Who's got mic on? Is that you?
I was just going to say, there are prohibitions. I do know this. Prohibitions. My business partners and I opened a restaurant, and even having venison in a restaurant is problematic. There's a lot of permitting that has to take place to be able to sell, retail sell venison. And my guess is it goes back to the abattoir or the processing facility. I know right now, processing facility-wise, we sell most of our cows to be backgrounded, but we're fortunate because we take our cows for our personal use to a facility down in Middle South Georgia. And it's 6 months. It's a 6-month appointment to take 2 cows for personal consumption. And when you have that situation, and you spoke about the deer coolers, same thing in my area. The deer coolers are full. They're closed for the season. So even if someone had a permit or wished to hunt, they would have to process that particular animal themselves at home. So I think the processing aspect is one that we need to explore more fully, because if you can't take a cow, which is a commercial product, to be processed, it's going to be really hard to take deer to be processed.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So anyway, I've been in conversation with Chairman Rhodes of our Game Fish and Parks Committee, and so if you want to share any of these good anecdotes or ideas with him, he's very open to it. In fact, I invited him here. I hated he had a conflict and didn't get here because I really wanted him to see this presentation. But he and DNR are in conversations about some solutions, and I'm sure they're looking for additional areas that any on this committee would have. So do not hesitate to share those with Chairman Rhodes as well. Okay, any other questions? We're going to move on to our next speaker. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate you being here.
Thank y'all. I appreciate it.
Our next presenter is Chris Butts, Executive Director of Georgia Fruit and Vegetable Association, someone I've known for a while, and Chairman Goodman and I both have been longtime members of Georgia Fruit and Vegetable Association. In fact, that's probably where I met Chairman Goodman for the first time many years ago, and just really great organization, Fruit and Vegetable, an organization I've been a member of probably since its inception, and just really lean on it for a lot of issues. We got a great convention coming up. I hope you'll invite this committee to Savannah for our annual fruit and vegetable convention, but covers many commodities, and I think you'll cover that. But appreciate you, Chris, being here. We'll give you the mic.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You talk about being here with a lot of friends and people that are familiar with GFVGA. For me, it's kind of a catch-22. It's kind of like going to a board meeting. My GFVGA president is Chairman Watson, and Chairman Goodman and Chairman Dickey have come through as well. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to come here and talk about some of the issues and challenges for our fruit and vegetable growers in Georgia.
I appreciate you doing that. I'm sorry I missed that, Sam. Great head of that organization, and Senator does a lot of work in a lot of areas. Thank you for that work.
It does. And while I don't know the exact address for the farm that Adam was talking about, Senator Watson, Chairman Watson said anybody's welcome to come to his farm and hunt anytime. So we can get you that address. Just say the word. you've got a handout that I'll go through and hit some of the high points on, but also you've got a refrigerator magnet there, and we've already had a request for some more, so we're going to get some more of those up here. But that highlights some of the different commodities that we grow in the state and when they're in season. We've got another one that tells you how to effectively store those fruits and vegetables in your refrigerator. This was news to me. Apparently there are different settings on those drawers for humidity. And so we've got another magnet that we'll get you guys some of that tells you how to properly store those fruits and vegetables. Fruit and vegetable production in Georgia is a big business. I'm probably going to get fired because if you flip to the first page, I've got a vegetable slide on there, and I left off fruit, which includes the peaches that Chairman Dickey grows and the blueberries that Chairman Goodman grows. So we may send you an amended version just so we get that on the record too. But overall, the farm gate value for fruit and vegetable combined is a little bit over $2 billion now, and employs about 20,000 folks. When you run that through the whole supply chain, the value of that is about $5.5 billion in sales. So a lot of fruits and vegetables coming out of Georgia. It never fails when we take somebody to a vegetable farm or a fruit farm in Georgia that's not familiar with those. Just the volume that they produce is stunning to some folks. But it's a lot of product and produce that comes out of the state. Tell you a little bit more about GFVGA now and some of the issues those farmers are facing. And as Chairman Dickey mentioned, our signature event, the Southeast Regional Fruit and Vegetable Conference, will be held January 11th through the 13th in Savannah. I believe will be the first event in the newly expanded Savannah Convention Center, and we use every square foot of space that they've got. And we would certainly welcome all of you guys to come join us at any point. I know it's right when session starts, but we're there on Friday and Saturday too. So if you have an interest in attending, let me know. We like to think it's the premier event in the Southeast. It'll have about 3,500 attendees. And key is 80 hours of education sessions broken down by 14 different commodity conferences. So we have a blueberry conference, we have a vegetable conference, we have a citrus conference for our growing citrus industry, and then a really large trade show as well. So we would love to welcome any of you guys down there to Savannah. So if you have an interest in attending, let me know, and we'll get you set up to attend. Next page, and this will lead into some of our issues, but 2 weeks ago, we just completed what we call the Georgia Agriculture Labor Relations Forum. It's held annually down in Tifton, and the thing that I would like to call your attention to there is just the number of supporting organizations that help make this event possible. So Farm Bureau, the Agribusiness Council, but then also you look and see those individual commodity groups that help support the event. And it's a big deal for us. H2A and the guest worker program is critical for fruit and vegetable growers. The reason why is our industry does not lend itself very well to automation. There is not a machine that will go pick onions. There is not a machine that can effectively go pick tomatoes. So that Vidalia onion, when you see it in the store, it's typically been touched by hands 5 or 6 times during that growing and harvesting and packing process. So our fruit and vegetable producers rely on that skilled labor in order for us to be able to put those fresh fruits and vegetables on grocery store shelves. And the purpose of this event, we bring together both what I would call the regulators and the various government agencies that interact with the H2A program. And we'll have about 150 growers from across the state that come. And it's all about learning to do things the right way and be on the right side of compliance. It is a very complicated and complex program, and this forum provides those folks with the information that they need to make sure they're doing right and providing a safe working environment both for the farm but also for the farm workers. So there's a website for that. All the archives are online. If you have any interest in that as well, let me know and we'll get you some more information on that. So talk a little bit about ag labor. As I mentioned, H2A has become critical for us in Georgia. And I believe at the end of 2023, we'll see that Georgia will now be the 3rd largest user of the program. California, surprisingly, is now going to be the largest. California, for a long time, didn't utilize the H2A program in great numbers because they had a lot of domestic labor and then, in all likelihood, some labor that was coming across the border that was undocumented. but even California now is starting to utilize the program. They'll be right near 50,000 workers that they bring in each year. Florida will normally be number 2, sometime around 40,000. And this year we expect the Georgia numbers will be over 30,000. So 30,000 workers that come in at various points throughout the year. And what we're seeing in our industry as our growers face more economic pressures, they're diversifying. So Chairman Dickey, you know, it may have used to have been where he needed workers during a certain part of the year to come in to either help prune or harvest. But as he expands into other crops now, he needs those workers on a year-round basis. So that is problematic, and I'll talk about that in a little bit too, because that's really not what the program was set up to do. So a lot of increase in the number of positions being filled in Georgia. Then you've got a map there a few pages back with some red states on it. I want to talk about what's called AWARE. You may hear that term. It stands for the Adverse Effect Wage Rate. And this is a wage rate that is set by Department of Labor and USDA that is somehow based on responses they get back from surveys that they send to farmers across the country. We were in a meeting not long ago with about 300 farmers, and Chairman Austin Scott asked everyone to raise their hand if they had ever received a survey. Not one farmer in the room raised their hand, indicating that they had ever received or responded to that survey. But somehow they take these numbers from these surveys that we don't know who they're from, and they come up with this adverse effect wage rate. And the purpose, the intent of that rate, is to protect our domestic workers. So in theory, they don't want workers coming in, guest workers from out of the country, and coming in and displacing or lowering the wages of our local workers in our communities. The reality is we don't have domestic workers in our communities that are coming and looking for this work anymore. I'm sure every grower in here could tell you stories about how few applications and how many fewer of those domestic workers come around and stick around. So this wage rate that is meant to protect a worker that's not there, as of January 1st in Georgia will rise to $14.66 per hour that's required. As a farmer utilizing that program, you're required to pay your workers. In addition, you're required to pay their transportation from their home country to your farm. You're required to provide housing for them while they're here, as well as food and other transportation back and forth to the job site. So in reality, we estimate that our growers are paying somewhere $17 to $20 per hour for labor. And that leaves us at a huge disadvantage to our foreign competitors that we'll talk about in a bit. The increase for 2024 follows a 2023 increase that was a 14% increase. So over the course of the last 2 years, our wages are going up to almost 25%, and we have zero control over that. Most of the H-2A workers that are coming into Georgia, those 25 to 30,000, are working in fruit and vegetables. So we're estimating that over the last 2 years, those rate increases are going to cost the industry about $160 million a year. I think our growers would also tell you there's not an extra $160 million in margin floating out there from which to pay that. So their only recourse at that point to save money is to hire fewer workers. That means they're going to be farming and producing on less acreage. And ironically, guess who's going to pick up the balance of that produce that they're not producing anymore? It's going to be the folks we're competing with in Mexico and Central America. So in an effort to protect our domestic workers, we're really driving production out of the state and lessening our ability to feed ourselves, which is problematic. So that aligns. Now we talk about imports. So yes, sir. Yep. We'd like to say we find ourselves, our farmers find themselves at the intersection of bad trade and bad labor policy. So we've already highlighted how we're at a disadvantage to our foreign competitors, and the reality is those foreign competitors are now picking up the slack and realizing that there's an opportunity there. And I want to address one thing on this. We've gotten very used to, as consumers, being able to go to the store and find fresh blueberries, fresh strawberries, fresh citrus, whatever, 365 days a year, and that's a good thing. And years ago what happened was these imports came in on the shoulders of our season. So they were filling in at times of the year when we didn't have produce available here. What you'll see in these documents is now that's become a year-round thing. That produce is flooding across, and the numbers keep surging year after year. And it's getting to the point where we often see our guys decide to stop picking and stop harvesting perfectly good fruits and vegetables. Will be left to rot in the field because it doesn't pay them to go harvest it anymore. Oftentimes, the market is being driven so low by imports that it's going to cost them more to go pick it and put it in the box. Sometimes the box costs more than what they can sell it for, which again is not good for the long-term outlook. How we get here, I won't go through all of these slides with you. Mexico is the primary country, especially on the vegetable side, where we're seeing the greatest amount of imports. And I hate numbers like increased 43,000%, but I've done the math on that over and over, and it's right. It's 43,000% is the amount of growth in protected agriculture just in Mexico. 80% of what Mexico is growing in produce is grown under those protected structures, and it's bound for the U.S. They've had some increases, and it's kind of clear as mud, to be honest with you, but we think that number is somewhere around $2 an hour. So if we're at 16, obviously that's quite a savings, but that also affords them the opportunity to put more workers in the field for less than us, and that allows them to sometimes grow a better product if you can give it more attention. You can package it different ways. Where's Chairman? You've got this one down.
You want me to talk?
Talk about the Tier 4.
You know I get long Tier 4 engines emissions mandates. In Mexico, they can still run Tier 1 engines. We have to run. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also just thank you for everything that y'all do. Thank you for this committee. You're all friends. And Mr. Chairman, appreciate our long friendship. Tier 4 emissions mandate. In Mexico, they can still run Tier 1 engines. The Tier 4 engines emission mandate is the biggest tax increase on the American farmer and rural America in my lifetime. From Tier 1 to Tier 3, the emissions reductions were very substantial. From Tier 3 to Tier 4, they were pretty negligible. Y'all know that we live in a world today where nearly 70% of the world's ammonium nitrate comes from Russia and Ukraine. Well, on the Tier 4 engines, we're taking urea and we're putting them in these tractors, and it's supposed to be cleaning up our engines a little bit. It adds about $50,000 to the purchase price of every tractor that's 150 or more horsepower. Okay, we're filling our landfills up with 2.5 gallon containers with this diesel exhaust fluid that's not even cleaning it up that much. Okay, my family, we plant trees in the wintertime. We've always run the Ford or New Holland 6610. They're still making that tractor 10 miles across the border in Mexico and shipping it all over the world. We can't bring it into the United States because it's a Tier 3 engine. The irrigation pumps that we use on our farm to frost protect with, we put about 80 hours a year on them because we have underground wells, we do drip irrigation, we fertigate with. That's what we do all the irrigation for. The engines and the overhead sprinklers are only for frost protection. The most we've ever frost protected in a season is 16 nights. The least is 0. Those irrigation pumps are under the same emission standards as a semi that puts 250,000 miles a year on the interstate. So this is a huge deal when we get to talking about leveling the playing field for the American farmer. The community that I live in, our bank, blueberries make up 35% of the loan portfolio in our bank. But not only that, when you talk about rural Georgia and where this is going, where we're headed to, in 2010, Mexico shipped in 1.8 million pounds of blueberries. Last year it was 63 million pounds. When you think about what that means for the small businesses that we support, the local parts store, what if you think of what it means to the tax digest in our rural communities, this is a huge deal. We've got a lot of problems facing agriculture, but this right here, we're going to be exporting our food security, and that's where it's headed. And so, you know, we have some difficult things that we're going to have to face in the future and to address, but unless we level the playing field for the American economy or for the American farmer, that's where we're headed. Because 15 years ago, there were 550 members in my co-op. There's 177 today. And our country seems to not want to address this. We went up and testified, I think, I don't know if you were with me, Chairman Dickey, when we went and testified when they were renegotiating USMCA, but we ended up getting left out of that. But what it means for communities like mine and rural communities, it's a big deal, and it's disheartening. I've seen times Senator Watson, when he sold squash for $4 a box. Senator Watson, what does it cost you? How much do you have in that? Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's a real issue. And like I said, y'all, I get long-winded, but I'll quit now. But, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, yeah. It's, he's a great spokesman, and Chris is too. And y'all, you know, labor is our biggest cost. And we got policy, as you just saw in this country, driving our labor costs up. Imports, and with what's going on in Mexico, undercutting us more and more every single year. Chairman Corbett mentioned it. $2 an hour labor in Mexico, us, we're 20 for our largest cost to grow fruits and vegetables. It's unsustainable, and you see it in this chart Chris has got here. So go ahead. I didn't pick back up where you
Chairman
were.
Corbett, did Chairman answer the question? Okay. I may start taking him around all these presentations and just turn that portion over to him. Okay. Again, I don't want to go through every one of these unless y'all have specific questions. Needless to say, it's a simple thing of supply and demand. When imports come flooding across, the prices in Georgia go down. And these are just a few examples. We didn't put page numbers on this, and I apologize. But this chart shows you real-world examples here in Georgia. When Mexican production goes up, Georgia production comes down, and the price follows. Same with squash. And we gave you some real-world examples here, and this goes back to the question on pricing pressures. The University of Georgia estimates that it costs us $6.94 to produce and pack and harvest a box of squash, and $7.86 for cucumbers. 76% of the Mexican squash sold into Georgia came in at $8.25 or lower, and as low as $6.09. So again, it's coming across and being sold into the country at a cost less than what it cost us to produce it. Same on cucumbers. This chart says it all to me, and if you go through and you count the red boxes versus the blue boxes, the red box indicates every time that the price went down in our country when imports surged, and you'll see there's a whole lot more downward pricing pressure there than there are the few times during the year when they're able to enjoy some better margins. You'll see some charts there from the International Trade Commission that also demonstrate what I was talking about imports becoming more of a year-round issue. Used to come in on the shoulders of our markets, now it's directly on top. Same for squash and blueberries and everything across the board. We're also working with UGA, and you've got a pretty new copy here of a study they've just finished up for us. And I've got these for blueberries, squash, cucumbers, and a few other commodities. But this was really the first time that anybody's tried to go through and estimate, all right, what is this foreign competition doing directly to our growers? And what we've figured out in this process, we used to think this was a Southeast problem. It's not. It's nationwide. So if you look at blueberries, you can see in the red bars on that graph, Mexico's season is now right on top of ours and comes in directly when we're harvesting. But then you've got countries like Canada and Chile as well that are now coming in right on top of the North Carolina market, right on top of the Michigan market. So it's not just a Southeast issue. Asparagus growers in Michigan are about to give up because they just cannot compete with stuff coming out of South America. So it's not just a Georgia problem. It's not just a fruit or a vegetable problem. And back to your question, Chairman Corbett, what we're seeing is, no, they may not have the same rules and regulations that we do, but these producers in these Central American countries are getting really good at telling us that they are. Their websites feature lots of information about food safety protocols and all these things. So they're getting really good at answering our concerns with their production. And that scares us as well, because we know that our guys are at a disadvantage, but they're getting pretty good at highlighting that, or debating that, for lack of a better way of saying it. Last page, I'll give you the losses to American producers. These figures came from the UGA reports, and I'll get those to Chairman Dickey. But this is the exact amount of money that is being lost by American producers because of the surge in imports. So blueberries, in which Georgia's the second, either first or largest, second largest producing state, depending on the year. $75 million that is not coming into our local economies in those blueberry production areas. Again, asparagus, $13 million. Bell peppers, $48 million. We're the third largest producing state of bell peppers in the country. Strawberries, $48 million. Squash, $42 million. Cucumbers, $38 million. And the thing that we would say is this: we think this is just the beginning. As they figure out how to grow other crops and do them well, we see them coming after other commodities too. So citrus is not really an issue now. But guess what? Citrus imports from Mexico are growing. So until we find a way to level the playing field for our guys, we're going to continue to see more and more of that business go to these countries. What can we do? We have a proposal that we'd like to see included in the Farm Bill. It's sponsored by Austin Scott and Congressman Ruiz out of California. Essentially, you could look at it as kind of a disaster type program. USDA knows when these imports are surging. They already have that data. So if we could prove that a bell pepper grower was harmed by imports in a given year, he would be eligible for some price support from USDA through that disaster insurance type program. We've chosen that route because we think it's the least disruptive. We don't want to do anything that raises the price of fruits and vegetables to the American consumer. In fact, we want to see everybody eat more fruits and vegetables. Doing this type of program doesn't limit the amount of imports. It doesn't tax the importers. It simply helps support our American growers. On labor, we've got to see reform at the federal level on H-2A, and there's a lot of folks in here that have been working on that for 20 plus years. But I think we're at a point now where these two issues have combined to the point where if we don't get it fixed, we're going to start to see some of our Georgia producers either find something else to grow, which is a tragedy because they've already got huge investments in the infrastructure. It costs a lot to grow an acre of peppers. But if we don't get some of those fixed, we're going to start to see some of those folks go out of business. So come to Savannah. We'll talk about all the things we're doing to make our guys more efficient and help them grow better. But we certainly need your support, and we thank you for all the support. Several of us have been to Washington, D.C. together to talk about this, but thank you, and we appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Very eye-opening. Senator Watson and Senator Goodman and myself and others are facing it head on. I'm not they hadn't figured out how to grow many peaches and import them yet from Mexico, but those two guys are really bearing the brunt of it, and it's very disturbing because we've got a great fruit and vegetable industry in this state that needs to thrive, and they're facing some really headwinds, and so I know Chairman Meeks, it's his time in Washington. Been hearing about this issue for that long too, I know, and so anything you got to say about it?
Well, I got a lot I could say, Mr. Chairman. But the one thing that I will say to Mr. Chairman, to Chris's point of how can we help, American producers produce the safest, most affordable, most abundant food supply anywhere in the world, hands down. I think we find the lack of public support for producers because we haven't been hungry. We've seen during pandemic going in and food shelves a little bare, but we've really never been hungry, and that's kind of the way I've always looked at it. But to the members of this committee, the way you can help is to have follow-up conversations with each of us, with Chris, with Chairman Watson, with Chairman Goodman,
Chairman Corbett, Chairman Dickey, of how can we have these conversations and express these issues with your member of Congress. It is, you don't understand how important it is that foreign policy be reauthorized. We're coming up on the expiration of a farm bill. Farm bills have been written since the 1938 Act, I believe, is permanent law. And as we face these issues, from labor to increased cost to imports, all of this plays into how our producers respond to get us what we need on the shelves in the grocery store. So I would encourage each of you to have follow-up conversations. If you need more information, talk to your members of Congress. Hey, this is important. This is important for Georgia, but it's not just important for all of us across rural Georgia. You hear more and more about food deserts in Atlanta and things that you're trying to do within Atlanta. I mean, it's important to all of us that we get this line of communication open to each of our members in Congress that, hey, this is how important it is, and this is how it really affects us all across our state. I can get on the soapbox, Mr. Chairman, but I'll get off of it now. But thank you, Chris, for what you do, and Chairman Watson and Chairman Goodman, and particularly in the fruit and vegetable world. Labor is a huge issue, and if we don't figure out a way to level the playing field with our foreign competitors, it's going to put us at a bigger disadvantage moving forward.
Chairman Meeks, you make a very good point. Food security is not just about producers. It affects consumers, and it leads me into another point that I want to remind the committee. We're about finished here. I've got to head to another meeting, but we've got a bill, Senate Bill 177, sitting in our committee from Senator Harold Jones, leftover from last year, that many of you, Representative Bennett, familiar with, and I promised this committee we were going to have some discussion about that. And so Monday we are going to have another Ag Committee meeting with lunch. It will be over in CLOB. I think food will be in one room. The meeting will be in a regular meeting room. They won't let us have food in that meeting room. And so Kathy Kazaver with Georgia Food Industry Council and those have graciously put together an agenda for us with some speakers coming to talk about food insecurity, food affordability, and those type things. And so I hope y'all won't have conflicts to be able to come eat lunch and hear some presentations, much like we did today, from several other completely different type focus on Monday for that. So anybody else want to speak? Also, we have an invitation from Department of Ag on December 18th that y'all would need to respond to. Catherine Russell there really needs to make sure it will be a committee day for us and Senate and House members, and she's going to pass out another invitation. So be sure to let Nicole or someone know about that very important meeting. It will be dealing with an issue we would definitely have some legislation about in January. Any other discussion? Anything else anybody want to bring up today? Chairman Goodman?
Mr. Chairman, the meeting next week, it's going to be a joint meeting?
Yes, thank you. I hope so. I hope y'all don't have a conflict, sentence. So yeah, that's why we got the bigger meeting room over there. So y'all could both. It's I think it's a Senate bill that's kind of leading into that you sent over, and we will take a harder look at that, and that's what that meeting Monday is mainly about. So with that, Clay. Catherine.
I can keep my comments short. I've just given you all a flyer. It's a printout of an email invitation. So there's an RSVP button on your printout that you obviously can't click, and so we will be forwarding you that email again. They've gone out once, but I know y'all get a lot of emails, and so I'll have even more printouts in the chambers, hopefully with with a link that you can log in, because we would like for you to RSVP in advance. Let us know if you have any dietary restrictions, because we would like to provide food, and make sure we have materials for everyone, because we really would like to see as many people attend to have a frank, open, and easy conversation about cannabis, and the way that the department understands it, and just kind of to get everybody on kind of just a basic understanding and agreement on like some terminology, the way that we look at how we handle the plant and those type things.
Thank you. That will be very important to me. We've been dealing with it, Chairman Corbett and others for quite a while, and our new commissioner is taking a very fresh approach to it and new approach to it, I think. And Catherine, I appreciate your work on this, and so I think it'd be if your schedule allows, December 18th. You're gonna have us lunch too, so
It'll be over at the department.
will Santa Claus be there as well?
We'll see if we can work on that.
Anyway,
Back here. Okay.
anything else for this committee? And again, you'll be getting notices about our Monday meeting as well. So, meeting adjourned. Thank y'all.